Hello, my wonderful, beautiful friends. Welcome back to r/ProRevenge. Where in this episode, you're gonna hear 3 revenge stories. The first, a delivery driver gets fired because of OP, then goes after him. The second story, OP and his friends get revenge on a person who keeps blocking his car in. And we'll finish off with a story about why you should never be lazy in school and do your own work. But let's be real, who's never copied off anybody at school? My friends, I do hope you stay for the stories today and hit that subscribe button for future stories. Let's dive in, guys. So I was driving down a small road with a 45-mile-per-hour speed limit that some choose to ignore, and coming up behind me was a work truck. The guy got right on my bumper. I'm in not a tiny car, but it's a sedan, and he was so close that all I saw was the grille and hood in my mirrors. While I stayed doing the speed limits, after about 3 minutes he decided that a sharp curve was the perfect time to pass me, and surprise surprise, there was a car coming after the curve. He swerved at me and I slammed the brakes, nearly missing his bumper. Thankfully, I had all of this on dashcam, front and back. I got home later and got the footage on my laptop and called their 1-800 number with his plate number and his truck number. The woman I spoke to was super apologetic and she asked me to send her the video. She watched it while on the line with me and asked if she could put me on hold. I said yes, and a few minutes go by and she gets back and brings me someone else on the line, the local store manager of the driver. She had sent him the video and the manager apologized a ton and promised me right then and there that the employee was terminated for that behavior. So a week goes by and I don't hear anything, till a friend of mine on Facebook sends me a link. The driver that was fired managed to get my name from the HR or manager or something and was trying to find me in real life because he lost his job and made a video wearing his work uniform threatening violence on me because of everything. I went to my local police station about it and showed them the video and explained everything and was told that I needed to speak to that company again because they let my name get out. I called them and told them everything that was going on and was told that I'd get a call from their HR department within 2 to 3 business days. Literally 6 hours later, I received a call from some higher-up HR person with one of their legal teams on the phone. They wanted me to sign a document stating that I won't publicly go after them or give negative PR if they sue him for me, and get a restraining order on this guy for what he threatened. They even offered to have a lawyer of my choosing go over it with me at no cost to me and sign it and let them handle it. A few more weeks go by, and that friend on Facebook said the dude's mom posted some sob story on Facebook that her son is going through some expensive court case that he likely won't win because the other team has over 10 lawyers. So not only did he lose his job, he then tried to find me only to have his ex-employer sue him. Hold up a minute, I don't get how the company got away with letting OP's name out to that crazy guy. I'm 100% certain that that should have been kept confidential. OP, I'm so confused. So, I live in an apartment building which has end-to-end parking for 2 spaces per apartment. I only have a single car, and sometimes I let my friends park in the space in front of my car if they give me notice. So generally, I park at the back of the double space. Earlier this year, a random car began parking in front of mine on Friday afternoons, meaning I could not go out with my car on Friday nights. It was annoying, but not the biggest issue when you live super close to the city. This continued nearly every week, over about 5 weeks when I did not park my car at the front of the bay, which I began doing. But times I planned to leave the space free for friends coming over or whatever, the car appeared again. I made repeated attempts to stop this behavior by leaving notes, with an explanation that if it happened again, I'd press charges or have the vehicle towed. Well, it happened again, and this time, I was still there on Saturday afternoon when I'd been planning to go away with a group of my mates. My guess is, someone went out on a Friday, got drunk, and decided to pick up their car later, not concerning themselves with the inconvenience it caused anyone else. It clearly had not moved, as my aggressive note telling them off was still there sitting limply under their wiper blades. I figured enough was enough. It was time to have the vehicle towed. So I called the building management and eventually called a towing company who refused to help because the space was on the 3rd floor and they can't get any trucks up to that level because of the height and space restrictions. Now, ordinarily, most people would be pretty much screwed at that point, and I will admit I briefly considered sitting on the hood of the car until the guy came to pick it up while sending my mates on their way without me. But they would have had to work out a new arrangement for transport, as one car would not have cut it. Fortunately for me, however, my parents live 30 minutes away. and they have a garage where I work on one of my cars that's getting the tail end of a minor restoration. One of the things I use pretty often is a set of vehicle positioning jacks to jam my project car right up against the wall of the garage to minimize the space it takes up. For anyone that doesn't know, vehicle positioning jacks are basically devices that slot under each wheel, and then lifts the car up on hydraulics so you can freewheel it in any direction. Then, a bright idea came to my head. None of my mates minded spending an extra hour to screw someone over that had interfered with us, so we grabbed the jacks and went back and propped the car up and wheeled it out. 6 guys can easily move around a small hatchback, so we pushed across the level slowly and carefully to an area where there isn't parking, but where there's a load-supporting pillar with space enough for a car behind it, in a little section of the garage where it isn't lit and completely out of the way. Typically, there's a guy on my level that parks a motorbike there, but he isn't meant to, and I doubted he minded. We dumped it between the pillar and the wall, with the nose pointing towards the wall. And I took back my angry note, the jacks, and we left to enjoy our weekend. When we came back Monday morning after the long weekend, the car was still there, which was no real surprise considering there was only about a foot of space for movement between the pillar and the car, and another foot or so between the car and the wall. From the fact that the front wheels had changed, we're guessing the guy did try to get it out, unsuccessfully. It eventually went later in the week, though I'm not exactly sure how they managed it, and I never saw the car again. Guys, I have one question. How in the world does one guy keep going back to the same parking spot after having multiple notes put on his windshield saying that he can't park there? Is this entitlement? Can he not read? This is absolutely ridiculous, guys. So my friend in Korea studies fashion design. She sometimes sends me over the sketches of the designs, and they all look amazing. Then again, I'm not into fashion. She's particularly interested in designing handbags and purses. She told me a story about how she shut down one of the most entitled, self-centered, lazy students on campus. So the cast of this story is Grace, our main character girl, Jane, the evil one, Professor, the instructor of the course. So at first, Grace and Jane got along just fine. They were both interested in similar stuff and quickly became best friends forever. Grace decided to show Jane her sketches and designs for handbags and purses, and Jane was so impressed by it. Even the professor was impressed by it, and it was no surprise that Grace got a high mark on their first major exam. Jane did not do so well. She practically followed Grace everywhere to get pointers on how to do better, so Grace decided to help her out. Unfortunately, Jane turned out to be one of the most entitled, lazy, and selfish people that Grace has ever met. The things Jane did to piss Grace off included, but not limited to, not paying attention, being late on their study session, never showed appreciation, didn't pay for coffee or snack, complaining annoyingly about how hard it was to draw something. Grace pretty much gave up after a week, refusing to meet Jane outside of her class. Time went by, and for their midterm, everyone in the class had to do a presentation on the stuff they designed. When it was Jane's turn, Grace was shocked to see that Jane had stolen one of her designs. Thankfully, Grace had multiple designs going on, so there was no conflicts when it was her turn to present, but she was seething with rage. Grace had a meeting with the professor afterwards, and the professor knew what was going on, but really couldn't do anything about it because Jane was the daughter of the chairman, and the chairman apparently blackmailed the professor into giving Jane the best grades. The professor did, however, help Grace devise a plan to humiliate and expose Jane. For the finals, the professor announced to the class that they would do another presentation, but it would be 3 designs, and advised they had to bring their A-games because professionals from industries would be grading their work, and the head of the department and the chairman would be there as well. So, you know how Grace had a bunch of sketches for the class? Well, Grace also had a separate sketchbook that had designs from major brands, Michael Kors, Coach, you name it. She never used these directly for class assignments, but rather as inspirations for her designs. Grace pretended to be friendly with Jane again and brought the other sketchbook on their meetings, still putting up with all the problems mentioned above. Grace secretly worked tirelessly on her new design and did their best to keep the secret from Jane. So, the day of the presentation finally arrives, and Grace and the professor are grinning because they know what's about to happen. Grace went first. She got a lot of praise from the judges, and after a few more presentations, the last one to go was Jane. Jane's presentation turned out to be another copycat, copying designs of not 1, not 2, but 3 different companies. After the presentation, this was how it all went down, at least according to Grace. Judge 1 says, "So, you're saying you designed all these by yourself, right?" Jane says, "That's right." Judge 1 says, "And you swear that it was really your design, and you didn't copy this from anything else, right?" Jane says, "I swear." Judge says, "You're aware your designs are from 3 brands." Jane was confused and said, "Huh? Are you aware that these are on the market right now and some of the most popular designs?" Judge 2 comes in and says, "Yeah, I was gonna bring this up. If you had worked for any brands, you would have probably been fired, or worst case, sued. Did you honestly think this would work? We, the judges, have been in the industry for over 10 years. We know a copycat when we see it." Jane then says, "But these aren't even my designs, they're from Grace." Judge 3 turns to Grace and asked if it's true, and Grace said, "Yes, but I would never use them for major projects, nor call them my work. I just use sketches of them as inspirations for my own designs." Judge 3 says, "Well, that was clear from your presentation." The judge turns back to Jane and says, "Now, Miss Jane, this is a clear case of plagiarism, and I do hope your school is merciful in this matter." After the presentation was over, the chairman screamed at the professor in front of everyone, not realizing he just revealed all the blackmailing and the secret grade deal. Jane tried to call out Grace on how you screwed me over, but it really didn't matter. No one listened to Jane's attempt and slander, and she was kicked out of the school. Chairman pretty much lost all support and had to resign, and was replaced by a far more honorable and competent one. So what the heck is the purpose of even being in that class when your dad just blackmails the teacher to give you good grades anyway? What's that really gonna achieve in the future? She's just gonna graduate from that school not knowing how to design anything. And that, my friends, wraps up another episode of r/ProRevenge. Guys, if you missed the last episode, OP's scumbag aunt neglects her dying mother and basically drains her life savings, and OP comes to save the day. Check it out if you missed it, and I'll see you guys in the next one. I love you.